I'm Laurie Cardoza-Moore, and this is Focus on Israel. Most people in the world associate the word football with a kind of kickball called soccer. But in America, football means football. One thing that few people associate with Israel is American football. Believe it or not, they play real football, and on our program today, you'll learn about the sport that is taking Israel by storm. Hello, I'm Laurie Cardoza-Moore, founder of Proclaiming Justice to the Nations, a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating and sharing the message of Christian biblical responsibility to the people and land of Israel in the face of a growing global anti-Semitism. On our program, we focus on a variety of topics about Israel and the Jewish people. We'll bring you information you'll not find in the mainstream media, and today is no exception. American football has become an unusual unifier of the people in Israel, with Jews, Christians, and Muslims all playing together as teammates. It's an amazing story that we discovered on our last trip here to Israel. Someone just happened to mention to us that they would be playing the Israel Super Bowl. My husband and I both loved the game and had no idea that real football was being played in Israel. So we just had to go and see with our own eyes and talk to some of the players. The championship game between the Jerusalem Lions and the Judean Rebels made us feel right at home. Thoughts about playing with people from different backgrounds? Do we see any of the conflict on the field?
None of the conflict makes it to the field. Nothing. We play with Arabs and Palestinians on the team, but there are Arabs, Muslims, Christians, mixed couples, kids, all kinds of things on the field. We have fun with all of them. Petah Tikva, I have one player who's Muslim and was with us on the national team.
Being involved with the national teams, going to other countries and showing them what Jews are doing out there as well, shows the exact same thing. We are friends around other countries such as Denmark, Germany, Mexico, the United States, Canada, from all around the world as well. And just out here is even more of it. And we tell them that we sit out here with Muslims, Christians, Jews together, playing not just against each other, but with each other and embracing each other all throughout the game. And it's a big thing.
I had the pleasure of coaching the national Israeli team, which also had Christians and had Muslims. And none of them ever need, because we came in as one, regardless of what we may think or the differences we have. And when you come and represent something, you come in as one, and everything else kind of, just gets lost in the bundle that goes on all the time.
I'm actually active duty in the Army. But I definitely think football brings people together. My whole life I've played football, so I know teams bring each other together. It brings you together. It doesn't matter what you do outside of football. When we're on the field, we play football. It's definitely an example of what we need to do. And I feel like if more and more we got more and more teams in the league and more coverage and more publicity and all that, I think it could be a very big first step to bringing peace to Israel.
This is so awesome. We have Muslims, Jews, Christians playing on the team. We don't see conflict. Why?
כאילו זה אנחנו אוהבים את המשחק הזה, גם אני הייתי שקטן אוהב את זה. I love the football.
So is this the way for peace?
ברור. כן, רק...
Amen. Amen.
Each other. As you can see, I live in a settlement, so basically all my people are very religious and everything, and still is one of my best friends. So we don't care about it. Both different.
ישראל.
Used to play in Israel national team too.
So good to meet you guys, and good luck in the game tonight. Very exciting.
God bless and peace from Israel.
Amen. How football took hold here and has grown is another amazing story. At a chance meeting at a restaurant in Jerusalem, the Kraft family, owners of the New England Patriots, learned of the struggle that people were having starting a football league here. The late Myra Kraft, of blessed memory, was moved to support the effort, and several $1 million was donated to build the only American football stadium in Israel. Robert Kraft also made several trips to bring professional football players to Israel for their first time. This included legends such as Roger Staubach, Joe Montana, Marshall Faulk, and Jim Brown. Many of these men have become ambassadors for Israel as they return to the U.S. with wonderful stories of the people and the land. Myra Kraft's commitment to support the sport of football has grown exponentially to not only expose many men and young boys to Israel and the Jewish people, but also to bring together in Israel Christians, Jews, and Muslims in a bond that goes far beyond the divide of religion and politics. Whether she envisioned how her inspiration would be a world changer, I'm not sure, but with her passing, she leaves behind a great legacy as the fruits of her decision continue to blossom. There are now 8 adult teams and 12 high school teams in Israel, but this growth has not been easy, and more Israelis want to join in. Today, the very survival and growth of Israel's football is largely dependent upon American Christians. You can't play tackle football without the proper equipment, but there are no sporting goods stores in Israel and nowhere to buy football equipment. All the equipment used in Israel is shipped from the U.S., and most of it is donated by colleges and high schools. If you're a University of Tennessee fan, you'll probably recognize the equipment worn by the Ramat HaSharon Thunder in Israel. When the university had to switch from Adidas sponsorship to Nike, there was a truckload of equipment with nowhere to go. Fortunately, Dan Phillips, a young coach in East Tennessee who had been helping grow football in Israel, saw the opportunity and persuaded UT to donate the equipment. Then he had to figure out how to ship it over 6,000 miles. Fortunately, he found a local church that supported Israel and was shipping supplies and furniture to help needy Israelis. Pastor Dean Hahn of Morristown Baptist Church was both a lover of Israel and football and stepped up to help. It was an amazing story of how God worked to bring this all together. Dan is now coaching and equipment coordinator for the Friends of the Israel Football League, a nonprofit dedicated to growing football in Israel. He gave us information on how the America-Israel Football Connection is working.
One morning, my wife and I, we were living in Florida, and I was getting ready to go about my day. And I turned to her and said, honey, I have a love of football and a love for Israel. And I don't understand how these two things are ever going to come together. How's God going to use that? And she just looked at me very assuring and said, honey, I don't know, but I know He will. I don't know that I have the adjective for seeing this come together. An APAC convention and a magazine ad, a movie, a trip to Israel, a meeting with the commissioner, and now here I am. My job, I kind of multi-pronged, but I tell people I basically coach the coaches. I make sure the coaches get coaching through mentorships between coaches in the States and coaches in Israel, through taking American football coaches to Israel to do clinics, by bringing Israeli football coaches here to the States to do 6 months internships, by bringing players from Israel over to do football camps, and by securing equipment, because there is no equipment available for sale in Israel. So all of the football equipment they get has to be shipped from the States, and I coordinate that. University of Tennessee is by far our biggest donor so far. We've also had equipment from University of Minnesota, University of Alabama, Birmingham, Carson Newman College, a lot of high schools here locally, Texas, North Carolina. So all of the equipment that they get is because it comes from America. Specifically through Knoxville, Tennessee, to a warehouse in Morristown, Tennessee, Harvest of Israel, run through First Baptist Church of Morristown. And then it gets on a cargo ship and it goes to the Joseph Project in Israel. And the Joseph Project and Harvest of Israel ship and warehouse all of the football equipment we get for free. And again, it is so critical because right now we are in 20 cities about in Israel. But we could be in 40 cities if we had the equipment. The only thing that's stopping the game from growing is not an interest. It's we don't have enough equipment to start new teams. Athletics in general, and I think football especially, bypasses the political and religious issues. Football is not concerned with how you vote. It's not concerned with your faith. It is its own fraternity, if you will. And so it's not that the people that coach and play don't have political or religious views. That's not the prism through which they see the world, particularly when you meet them on the football field. That's not their prism. What they love is football. And so we see that even in Israel. You have players on the same team in Israel that are Orthodox rabbinical Jews alongside Arab Christians, alongside Arab Muslims. And how does that work? Well, it works because when they come onto that football field, their prism is their team. They call it their colors, their jersey. And they see and experience each other through that prism. They don't experience each other from a religious or political point of view. And they become teammates, and they become friends. And that is how they experience each other. So again, when I take coaches or players over, their prism is football. They're there because they love football, and they want to coach football. And then they find out, this country, Israel's a cool place, and these are great people, and they're intelligent people, and they're lovely people, and what a great time we had. So the reason I think that's so important is because then when they come back and somebody tries to tell them about Israel, they say, no, that's not it. I've been there. I've seen these players play together, regardless of their ethnicity or their religion. I've experienced it. You just have a theory about it. And one of my concerns is, of course, for the rising generation and subsequent generations, because we seem to be quick to forget our history. And it wasn't that long ago that there was, the injustice that was done to the Jewish people by means of the Holocaust. So one of the reasons I think this mission through the game of football is so important is because of so much of the misinformation that we are fed about Israel. My first trip in 2006, I was a pastor and I had a congregant who coached football. And I let him know about a coach's trip where I was taking some coaches and players to Israel. And so he came. I would say Charlie came back from that trip empowered. He had a message and an experience that he believed in, that he knew was significant. And so here you have a man who's a servant in his church, teaches classes in his church, preaches on occasion in his church, coaches at a local school, And in the midst of all of this BDS movement, particularly when you see it at the secondary school level, well, now we have a man who's been to Israel who can speak against that, and not speak against it from a philosophical position, but from a very deep, emotional, I've been there, I've seen it with my own eyes kind of thing. And I'm sure he's continuing to influence that discussion even today.
I want to take you to Israel in pictures and film. I want you to see how God's sovereign hand can be seen before our eyes right here in this land. That's why PJTN is offering a special anniversary package that includes a captivating new book and award-winning DVD. Israel Rising is a unique visual story of Israel's miraculous journey from unforgiving desert to thriving nation. Thousands of years ago, the prophet Ezekiel foretold a future time in which the arid land of Israel would come alive for its people. Now this breathtaking book documents the fulfillment of this vision, as rarely seen photographs from the 1880s to the 1940s are juxtaposed with recent photos of the same locations. This book will inspire and captivate you as it illuminates Israel's foretold awakening in a new and unforgettable way. In addition, you'll receive the award-winning documentary, Israel Indivisible: The Case for the Ancient Homeland. This inspiring film examines the many political twists and turns that make Israel the world's most controversial nation. From Abraham and the Promise to the issues facing the Jewish state today, the film examines the historical, archaeological, legal, and biblical foundations for the modern state of Israel. This is a limited time offer for these two remarkable resources for just a one-time gift of $70 today. Your generous donation will help ensure that PJTN stays on the front lines and in the headlines of all the important issues facing Israel and our Jewish brethren. So please go to pjtn.org today. From studying history, it's very clear that what starts with the Jews never ends only with the Jews. We must strongly stand against any anti-Semitic trends, for if not stopped, they'll cause harm to all of us, and we'll witness the downfall of our Judeo-Christian Western culture. Today, many people say there's no longer a need for a Jewish state, that Jews around the world no longer need a place of refuge. But anyone who has heard recent statistics about the worldwide rise in anti-Semitism would never make such a claim. The reality is that neo-Nazi groups and Nazi sympathizers are increasing around the world. Surveys show that over 1 billion people in the world harbor anti-Semitic attitudes. Close to 50% believe that Jews have too much power in the business world, and 2/3 of the world's population has never heard of the Holocaust or believe the historic accounts of it are inaccurate. Don't let yourself be manipulated by evil people with a wicked agenda. When the self-serving villains are in control, good people from all religions suffer. Muslims, Christians, and all people of conscience should stand proudly and show respect for a country that gives so much to the world in so many ways. Do your part, do your research, and do what you can to make a difference. Because what happens in Israel does affect us all. This is not just a Jewish or just an Israeli problem. This is a problem for all humanity, for each and every one of us who believe in freedom and human rights. Learn more about what you can do at pjtn.org. Up next, you'll meet Bezalel Friedman, the commissioner of the Israel Football League, and Steve Leibowitz. Both men gave me more history and insight into American football in Israel. Well, I think you're doing an outstanding job. I've talked to several of the players tonight, and they all come from, it's interesting, the different walks of life. These aren't just Jewish kids. These are Muslim, Christian, and Jewish kids playing together on the field. So obviously peace can be achieved.
Well, football is an equalizer, and a good friend of mine likes to say that football doesn't only necessarily build character, it reveals character. So bottom line, when you put everyone together on a football field, it doesn't matter where you're from, what your background is, religion. I mean, you only have to look to the States and look at the 60s and 70s and look what sports did for racial and ethnic barriers. You look at Jim Brown, Jackie Robinson, and sports does a great job of bringing people together. Football is a very young sport in Israel, and we're the fastest growing team sport. We're now the 5th largest team sport in the country. We have about 2,000 athletes and coaches participating from the youth levels, flag, tackle, men, women, adults. So all in all, about 2,000 athletes, 19 different cities and towns. We play football, we have national teams, and it's a lot of fun growing the sport. It's a sport that can be very attractive for Israelis. It's physical, it's tough, strategic, tactical, and it's all about teamwork and team spirit.
You asked about the league and how it started. We were just a group of guys wanting to play touch football and not having a decent place to play, and eventually we met Robert Kraft. Now we have this amazing new sports complex, which is the Kraft Family Sports Campus. Even I, who came as a young man, 22 years old, to Israel, when I got here, I loved the country, but I really missed American sport, and football was missing, and that's why I started it and got, it started growing, and it's been growing ever since. We're now 2,000 players, and we have tackle leagues, high school tackle leagues, women's leagues, and it's a great sport, and it's becoming one of the most popular sports in Israel.
Well, so where do you see the league going here?
We're advancing internationally. Our flag teams are some of the best in the world. They're highly ranked in the top 8 of the world. In tackle football, we want to get on the map as well. We have a couple of Israelis now playing Division II football in the United States. We're hoping to have an NFL player from Israel that was born here before I retire. I've promised that to Bob Kraft.
And Mr. Kraft has helped us develop all of this, not only for us, but for the city of Jerusalem. There are 3 full-size fields here. This field that we're standing on is the first and only regulation-size American football field in Israel. My dream, and I think it's a dream shared by Mr. Kraft, is that 5 years from now, we will have 4 fields around the country of regulation-size football, and then we'll be able to really serve the whole country and to develop the sport in the way that we're hoping to do. And Mr. Kraft, he likes to say, before I built this little field in Jerusalem, the Patriots had never won a Super Bowl championship. Now we've won 6. She was devoted to making sure that we had women's flag football here in addition to the men. And she was, from my point of view, she's an angel. She's something of a very, very special person. She was, and he was, also there. But Myra wants it, you give it to her. Now I think he's more involved, and Dan Kraft, the son, is very much involved in everything that we do. Football in Israel has been around for over 20 years.
To play a sport that you love, to represent your country, is just the most amazing thing.
It's so much more than just playing football. It's our lives.
And it's funny because a lot of people, because of the news, they have different views of what Israel is. So to be able to represent our country in a proud way.
It's just an amazing, amazing feeling to have in front of you on your jersey the letters of Israel. You have the flag.
And for a lot of people, it's the first time they're meeting an Israeli. So, to be able just to be here and have a common language, which is sports and specifically football, it's really, really special for us, and we hope to be able to continue doing this for many years to come.
We had a nice flag football league going. We had no place to play. There weren't enough fields. It was a big problem. We had grown to about 30 teams, and the concierge at the King David Hotel happened to see Bob Kraft on a visit and walked up to him and said, "You're the Patriots owner, aren't you?" And he said, "Yes, I am." He said, "Well, do you know that we have football in Israel?" He said, "No, I don't."
I personally love the state of Israel. I love football. Bringing those 2 things together and helping them develop and be played by men, women, and youth, knowing our family has played a small part in making that happen. It's is two of my loves.
And I came up with a plan of how to develop the sport in Israel, and that plan involved the creation of a sports facility, which became Kraft Family Stadium.
They made it possible. That's it. If there were no Kraft Family, there would probably be, we wouldn't be here, there wouldn't be a league.
It's been unbelievable. I remember the first time I came to Israel, they were playing this on a muddy grass field, which when it rained was flooded with puddles. And Robert Kraft came in there and just built an entire stadium. Football, I don't think would be possible without the Krafts.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
I think that people just don't even know. They see a country maybe in the desert, in the middle of who knows what, and football is maybe the last thing that you think about.
Let's make it happen, girls. I love you all no matter what. Let's go.
Their international success is a mere reflection of the game's growth and development back home.
Instead of having 2,000 players, 5 years from now we can have 10,000 players.
They're aggressive, they're tough, they don't quit.
I believe that it's a great combination. IFAF working in teamwork with the NFL for the development of football globally. We're going to be part of that effort.
Well, that's our program for today, and I want you to know we appreciate your support. The time to take a stand is now. Be a leader in your community and in your church. One person can make a difference. Get involved with and support pro-Israel organizations such as PJTN. Call your senators, congressmen, let your elected leaders hear from you. Visit our website to learn more. Sign up to receive free action alerts and order our films to share with family and friends. If you're interested in starting a local chapter of PJTN to combat anti-Semitism in your community, please contact us at info@pjtn.org. God bless you, and thank you for all you do on behalf of our Jewish brethren and all Israel. We'll see you next time on Focus on Israel.
To support this program, send your tax-deductible gift to Proclaiming Justice to the Nations, P.O. Box 682711, Franklin, Tennessee 37068. You can also support PJTN online. Visit pjtn.org or call 1-877-873-9020.
Anti-Semitism has reached epic proportions, and Israel is now surrounded by nations who seek its destruction. For Israel to lose just one battle would mean losing everything. As Christians, it is our biblical responsibility to stand with our Jewish brethren and Israel. PJTN needs your help to reach more Christians with this urgent message. Please visit our website to become a member today and order our award-winning documentaries. You must decide that you won't be silent. Sign up now at pjtn.org. God bless you, and thank you for your support and prayers.